When your child is really upset and having a tantrum, your natural instinct is to talk to them to help them calm down. And when that doesn't work, you talk some more. And then some more. But what you might not be realizing is that all that talking is actually making it worse. The secret to helping your little one calm down isn't to talk to them. It's to actually stop talking. Now, I'm not suggesting you ignore them or walk away while they're kicking and screaming on the floor. You absolutely need to respond, just in a totally different way, and I'll show you exactly how to do that shortly. But first, let's break down why all that talking isn't helping your little one calm down. When your child is having a tantrum, their emotional brain, the amygdala, has detected a threat and sounded the alarm. Now, this threat doesn't have to be something actually dangerous. To your child, it could be something as simple as getting the blue cup when they wanted the red one, having to leave the playground when they're not ready, or not being able to put their shoes on by themselves. Now, to our adult brain, these things seem minor. But to your child's developing brain, these feelings of sadness, frustration, or anger can feel just as overwhelming as genuine danger. Their emotional brain doesn't yet distinguish between my life is in danger and this isn't what I expected. It just registers that something is wrong and hits the panic button. And when this happens, their brain flips into survival mode, triggering that inbuilt fight, flight, or freeze response. And here's the crucial part. When your child enters this survival state, the thinking part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, temporarily goes offline. And guess what? That's the exact part of the brain that processes language and reasoning. So their ability to understand and process what you're saying, it plummets. This also happens to adults too. Think about the last time that you were really angry and someone tried to reason with you. How much of what they said do you actually remember? Probably very little. Their words most likely went in one ear and then out the other. And that's exactly what's happening with your child when you try to explain why the blue cup is fine or how they should use their big, kind words instead of screaming. Their brain simply cannot process your words or make sense of them. But that's not all. When you're trying to calm your little one down during a tantrum, think about what they see from their perspective. You're most likely standing over them, your arms are moving around as you're trying to explain things, and your face is showing all kinds of emotions while you're trying to talk them through it. Now, of course, you're just trying to help. That's what all good parents do. But when your little one's brain is already in that survival mode, all those big movements and intense expressions can feel really scary to them. And instead of feeling reassured, their survival brain might be picking up on even more danger signals. So not only are your words not getting through, but your body language might accidentally be telling their brain to stay in panic mode, which can turn what could have been a 5-minute tantrum into a 30-minute marathon that leaves everyone exhausted. During a tantrum, your child doesn't need you to talk them out of it. They just need to feel safe, because only when they feel safe will their thinking brain come back online, and only then can they actually hear and understand what you're saying. So how do you do that? You need to show their brain that they're safe through your actions and calm presence. Now, I know this sounds a bit vague, so let me show you exactly how I use this approach with my own child just the other day. My youngest, who's 2.5, and her big sister were playing with the dollhouse when suddenly she started screaming and rolling around on the floor, all because she wanted the cot her sister was using. Now, I could have run up to her and said something like, "You're upset because you want the cot," and then try to explain why she couldn't have it right away and how she needed to wait her turn. But as you now know, all those words and my animated face might have actually signaled more danger to her already alarmed brain, leading to more screaming and an even longer tantrum. Instead, I simply picked her up, carried her into her room and laid her on the floor. At this point, she was still kicking and screaming and trying to roll away from me. She was literally pressing herself against the wall, trying to get as far from me as possible. She was clearly showing me that my presence wasn't helping at that moment. In fact, being able to see me was making it worse. So I simply said, "I'm here," and then I moved slightly out of her line of sight but stayed in the room. And then I waited, quietly. I didn't try to talk, lecture, or reason with her. I didn't say, "Use your words," or "calm down," because honestly, those phrases rarely help in these moments. Actually, quick side note, telling your child to use your words or calm down are 2 of 8 common phrases I recommend you avoid wherever possible because they don't convey the message you intend. And there are just much better alternatives. If you want to know what those 8 phrases are and what to say instead, click the link in the description to grab your free guide, 8 phrases to rethink and what to say instead. Okay, back to my little one. When I noticed that she was starting to settle, so her crying became less intense and she stopped rolling around on the floor, which honestly felt like an eternity but only took a minute, I moved back to where she could actually see me. But still, I said nothing. I just let my calm presence do the talking. Through my calm body language, her survival brain was seeing that her big emotions aren't dangerous, that she was safe and she was going to be okay. My steady presence was basically telling her nervous system, we're not in danger here. Now, about 30 seconds later, she looked up at me and I simply said, do you want to cuddle? She nodded yes, and then she climbed into my lap. Again, I just stayed quiet and held her in my arms as she calmed down. Then, once her breathing slowed down, her body relaxed and she started making eye contact with me again, I knew that her thinking brain was back online and ready to hear and process words again. And that's when, and only when, I could finally talk to her about what happened and how to solve the problem. Now, you're probably thinking, that's great at home, but what about when my kid has a complete meltdown in Target because I won't buy the 15th dinosaur toy they desperately need? Public tantrums are definitely trickier. There's nothing quite like having your parenting on display while your little one has a complete meltdown over a toy they absolutely cannot live without until tomorrow, of course. But here's the thing, your child's brain works exactly the same whether they're at home or in aisle 7. When they're in that survival mode, they literally cannot hear what you have to say. So what do you do when you've got a screaming child? Well, there are 2 options depending on your comfort level and the time that you have available. If you have time and you feel comfortable, you can try to move your child to a quieter area like an empty aisle, but if you can't move them to a quieter space, that's fine. Just try and create a little bubble of calm right where you are. So you would get down to their level instead of towering over them. You would keep your movements minimal and your face as relaxed as you can manage. Now, I know this is easier said than done when everyone is staring at you. And then just like at home, you would say something like, I'm here, and then focus on being that steady, calm presence. And then wait for signs that their thinking brain is coming back online before trying to talk them through what happened. Now, if you're in a time crunch, so maybe you're late for a doctor's appointment or you need to pick up your other child from school, it is totally okay to shift into exit strategy mode. So acknowledge what they're feeling, then give them a simple choice about how to leave. So you might say something like, you're upset because you can't get the toy. I get it. We need to leave now. Would you like to hold my hand or should I carry you? Now, I know this contradicts my don't talk advice, but sometimes giving a simple choice can prevent the situation from escalating further. And honestly, it gives you a sense of control when you're feeling anything but in control. Now, if they don't choose, and they probably won't when they're still in full meltdown mode, just pick them up and leave. Remember, getting through the moment is sometimes the best that you can do, and that is completely okay. Now, unfortunately, helping your child through tantrums is just one of the many challenges that come with this age. Another challenge you're bound to face is whining. And like tantrums, this is completely normal child behavior. But how you handle these moments has a big impact on how often they whine and how intense it gets. If you want to make sure that you're addressing whining in a way that's going to reduce how frequently it happens and not make it worse, and reduce how severe it gets, make sure you watch this video next, where I'll show you exactly how to respond when the whining begins and how to guide your child towards more positive ways for asking for what they need without all the complaining.